The front four, they are running them down.
Cindric gets moved out of the way.
Yes, sir. That's what I'm talking. You are the man, buddy.
Checker flag in the air. Austin Dillon wins.
Thank you, Jesus. Teamwork, baby. Yeah.
That race last year, regular season finale, was nutso, and that's why the bubble going in looked like this. Go down there to the 19th position. Austin Dillon, more than 200 points out. Ryan Blaney, Martin Truex Jr., 187 or more to the good. Fast forward, Austin Dillon wins. He's in. Blaney +3 in front of Truex. And Truex, as we talked about earlier, a champion who does not qualify for the playoffs. The numbers aren't as extreme as we go to Daytona this weekend. One spot available, and one more time, it's going to get what on Saturday night?
Nutso.
Yes, it is. What do we expect, Larry?
Well, think about Martin Truex Jr. The good thing is he finished 4th in the regular season points last year. The bad news is he missed the playoffs. I mean, that's even hard to wrap your head around. And I think about Bubba Wallace. Yeah, it's great to be 32 points above the cut line, but how do you calculate points? Here's the scenario. And remember, we're not going to a mile and a half. We're not going to a short track. We're going to Daytona, a super speedway. That man and that team could win both stages and finish second in the points. And if we get a new winner, he will be on the outside looking in. And again, we're probably, I said it earlier in the show, there's a good chance we're not going to know who's going to win this race to the final corner of the final lap, maybe as they cross under the checkered flag. So this is a tough one. I think they need to be a little conservative, Trevor, but I think they still have to think we might have to win this thing.
Yeah, for sure. But you can't beat yourself. You can't go there thinking we've got to win. Somebody's going to win outside of the playoffs already and go out there and make a mistake trying too hard. We see that happen a lot. And if it gets to the end of this race and we don't have a new winner and he has beat himself by crashing out early, being aggressive, they're going to regret that. So I think they need to play the points game. But for everybody else, that cut line is imaginary now. If you're behind anybody else has won already this season, you've got as good of a shot of anybody. We've seen Justin Haley win here. We've seen, tons of drivers that are not even in this discussion go to Daytona and win a race.
That's what you told me about Bubba Wallace. What's the best track to take him to if he's in this situation? Daytona. Man's finished second there 3 times. It's a good racetrack for him.
But off of what Trevor said, that's what I love about Daytona being a regular season finale. And I always thought it was awesome, 4th of July weekend, the history and tradition. I wasn't sure about the move, but the reality is it gives everybody hope that is yet to qualify. And there are a handful of drivers that have won in this race that know they have a chance to go out and get it done and put themselves in the playoffs. Dillon, Cindric, they're in a must-win. The same for Eric Almirola. You talk about Justin Haley, Eric Jones. All of these drivers have to get it done Saturday night.
And not one of them have been in our discussion about the playoff bubble for the last 6 weeks. I mean, you look at Eric Almirola in the season he's had. He's won at Daytona. So they're in equal shoes. Everybody goes into this race. You might as well get the bingo ball roller going and just pull a number out, because that's what we're pretty much going to do at Daytona here.
Yeah, when you look at that graphic, there's some of them that won several years ago, but there were 2 names on that graphic that won last year. Austin Cindric won the Daytona 500, and to the point we made earlier, Austin Dillon won the August race. But I'm a little bit with Trevor. I think you keep an eye on that 10 car of Eric Almirola and Drew Blickensderfer. They had good speed at Daytona back in February. They qualified up front. They won their dual race. But I will say this, another Ford driver, Austin Cindric, that we spoke about, he finished second in that dual race to Eric Almirola. So again, I think we've got 16 or 17 drivers that are in a must-win situation. I absolutely, over the next hour, if we had it, I could make a case for about a dozen of them that could win this thing on Saturday
And to sum it up, Bubba Wallace has got the hardest race ahead of him of everybody that we just talked about.
Well, I go back to what you said earlier on Bubba Wallace, and you laid it out there. He could win both stages. He could finish second in the race and still miss. The same can be said, though. He could crash out on lap 1 and still make it into the playoffs. That's the scenario for Bubba Wallace because where he is on points, depending on who wins this race. You look at drivers that won last year that have not been to victory lane this year. That list is long, and there's a handful of drivers on that list also that could go out and get it done this weekend, Larry.
Well, and they're all essentially in a absolute must-win situation. I do think about, you look at these guys right here. Look, we talked about the 2 Hendrick drivers that's on there. You talk about Chase Elliott, talk about Alex Bowman. I know we maybe don't think about them when it comes to winning at Daytona, but I think about them having good speed when we go to that super speedway down there, and I bet you those two will be loaded for bear when we go down there.
So what's the storyline next Sunday or next Monday when we come in here for the hub? Is it Bubba Wallace does what he has to and he gets in, whether it be with a win or points, or is it someone below the cut line wins, walks off, and gets it done? Where do you go?
We're analysts, but your guess is as good as ours on this one at Daytona. I mean, in my gut, I feel like somebody like Denny Hamlin that has multiple wins on the season, that's always good at Daytona, is going to go out there and get it done. Or a Brad Keselowski that's already locked in on points. Thinking about somebody coming from below the cut line and winning, I don't think it's going to happen, but I mean, I'm just guessing at this point.
Well, it's a good thing I don't gamble for a living. I'd be eating out of a trash can, absolutely. I failed miserably yesterday on race day. I said even at Watkins Glen, a driver below the cut line was going to win. That obviously didn't happen. I do believe the potential is highly there